Hey, family, Reverend Russ, super excited that you are back with us as we get ready to close out this year. I was praying about trying to think about how can we close it out strong, but also close it out in a way that would be super informative for us. And I could think of nobody else but one of my friends, my brother, Pastor Brian Bullock. I hope that you have heard his name before. If you haven't heard his name before, I promise you, you won't forget his name after this pivot. I'm super excited about all that Pastor Brian is doing over there at Union Church in Charlotte. Shout out to Pastor Stephen, senior pastor of Union Church. But I'm excited that he's going to talk through several things. We talk about everything. Actually, we actually talked about so much, but we had to slow it down and trim it down rather, so that we can fit it all into this one pivot. But he is the pastor of Union Charlotte that launches in just a couple days from now. And so we talk about what it means to plant, what it means to launch, what it means to be under leadership, what it means to be gifted under leadership. There's so much in this. I can't wait for you to hear my conversation with Pastor Brian. Don't forget to like, to comment, to share, to subscribe. Don't forget to look at the show notes that there will be inside this lesson. You can go right now and click there. But without me talking anymore, let me go ahead and move us forward into my conversation with Pastor Brian. Pastor Brian, man, super excited to have you on Ministry Pivot. Thanks, bro, for making the time, for taking a minute to get on the Ministry Pivot, man. Thanks again for joining us today.
Listen, man, I'm excited. I'm happy. It was always a pleasure. When I was a youth pastor in Boston, I just remember a mutual friend of ours, Jason LaPlanche, sent me some of your books, and I just remember reading. I'm like, who's writing all these devotionals? Who's writing all these student plans? And I just remember, how impactful your content and your style, your approach was then. And so, man, I'm just honored to just be able to continue to connect with you at this stage. Now that we're past our youth,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
we're not as young as we once was, but
Nah.
it's good to be on this side.
No, I appreciate it, Pastor. And let me shout out Pastor Jason Motivation to check them out. They are super dope. And I remember, so I did an intro. We talked through a lot already in the intro, but for those who don't know who Pastor Brian Bullock is, I want you to share some, and I'm gonna tease out some because we've been blessed to have a mutual understanding for some years. And it was funny that you say it that way because there was some stuff that I was writing, but now there's stuff that you're doing that I'm like, yo, this dude here. And but just give somebody a little bit of background because you move. We talked on camera. You move more than I knew you moved. You've moved. You've pivoted a lot.
A lot. Yeah, my life has been a pivot, one huge pivot. And I'm born and raised Boston, Massachusetts. Typically, when people ask me what part of Boston, I say the part where Bobby Brown and New Edition was born. That's pretty much the part of Boston that I came from. Good
Okay.
Boston,
Yeah.
the inner city of Boston. Single mom, absent dad. Dad struggled with a major addiction.
Wow.
Love him, but his addiction kind of just drove our family into poverty, into my mom just kind of raising these boys on her own in the inner city. And
Wow.
man, it was interesting because I remember, growing up and seeing my mom and my dad kind of go at it. And dad left home when I was young. His addiction kind of just it was so strong that I remember at times feeling like, man, why is my family so jacked up? Why why
Wow.
why why did God put us in this situation? My dad's addiction. My dad would drop us off to school, say he's going to pick us up, and forget to pick us up.
Wow.
I've seen my dad, get arrested several times. I've seen my mom call the cops on my dad. I've seen my dad. I've wrestled my mom's purse out of my dad's hand
Jeez.
because just the addiction is not even knocking him, but that addiction that he had to drugs was just so strong, man. It just created this dynamic in our home. But my mom, she always took us to church, always, and that church was my grandfather. And my grandfather was the one that really introduced me to God, started me preaching. I preached my first sermon when I was 7 years old. And
Wow.
became an ordained licensed minister when I was 18. And my grandfather was the one who really put me on that path. And so, what my wife and I have been telling so many people is that, man, the purpose that was unlocked within us through the local church, we now get to do that for other people on our
That's
journey now.
that's
And so my older brother is a pastor. My younger brother is now someone who deals with social justice and really bringing change to the city of Boston. And so, man, we're just honored that the journey that I could have been on, or the story that I could have had, I didn't, because of God, the local church, and a mother who did not play.
Amen. That's what's up. That's what's up. Many of us have a similar mom, man. It's just wow. We need to do a whole thing just on moms, right? Like just on the fact of mom. You know, my dad wasn't around, but on the fact of moms being able to step in super early and do like adult jobs with the kid. You know, what I mean, that's just absolutely, you know, phenomenal and wild. And so Boston, and then you go to Denver, right? Now you're one of the guys. So you my guy. We text often, and I appreciate, you know, not as often now, but we go back and forth. But you're one of the guys, and I'll tell you this because I appreciate you. I love you. But I talk about people like you because you got gifts, man. Like you don't just preach, you don't just write. You know, the Lord also gave you a singing gift. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
and you've been able to use those though, and I want those who are watching or listening to hear me. You've been able to use those in a way that's not only accountable, but in a way that is example worthy. And but I don't know if you got to Boston fully, but you were doing both. You were worshiping leader, you were worship leader, you were also youth pastor, but you made the pivot from excuse me, from Boston to Denver, right? And that's where we kind of connected again. So I don't want to. I'm sure there's a lot that kind of went through that. And we're going to get to Union Church and shout out Pastor Stephen and kind of what you got going now. As people hear this, you all will be a couple days away from launching. But how did Boston to Denver happen? How did that pivot come about?
Do you want the church story, or do you want the which version of the what is ministry pivot? I don't. Is this a platform? This is an unfiltered platform, or is this?
No, this is for anybody. This is for, so I want the real one, because the hope is, Pastor Brian, man, that those who are watching, those who are listening, can be able to say, you know, we know different. You know what I mean? Like you talking about your dad, I'm talking about my dad. We've never even had that story before together. But
Yeah.
there's no different. But there's thousands and hundreds of people who are in the same situation, and so I want the uncut. I want the one that's right, and if we have to edit something, we'll do that, but I doubt we will.
When I was in Boston, I was a youth pastor. So I grew up in a very small Baptist church,
Yeah.
and they got to a point. I was preaching and I'm ministering, but it got to a point where I felt God was calling me to something a little bit different, and it was very difficult to make that decision because my grandfather. I went to a family church. My grandfather is one
Mhm.
of 27 kids. Uh,
Wow.
Six of his siblings migrated from North Carolina to Boston. They all had like 14 kids, 15 kids. So everyone in our church was cousins. And so when I left the church,
Wow.
I didn't just leave the church. I left my family. Anybody's ever been to a family church, you know that if you leave a family church, they disown you. You are dead. Don't call us. Don't. You're not alive. The Lord is going to take your anointing and give it to one of your younger cousins. It's off your life.
Yeah.
And I love my family, but I remember making that pivot and I went from a small Baptist church to the largest church in our city, a church of about 7,000 people.
Wow.
And while at that church, I became the youth pastor. And man, the youth group just blew up. I'm pastoring a youth group in two different locations within the city because we had two campuses. And I'm preaching on Sundays. And I mean, I'm just, dude, it's going crazy. Like, I'm preaching so good that people are buying my sermon CDs from the bookstore. There's nothing worse to happen to a young preacher than for him to be preaching and then see a line of the people, you know, bookstore. And I was one of those guys, man. After I preach, people will come to me and they'd be like, "Man, you should do your own. You should have your own church, man. I don't know why
Yeah.
you're here. You should." And you brush it off, but then it starts to get to you, starts to bother you, starts to like, man, maybe I should be doing my own thing. And I remember went to my pastor one day and I was just like, hey, I just feel God calling me to start my own church. And I went to this, church network, this conference. I came back fired up, feeling like, man, I think I'm called to start a church. And so I went to my pastor. I said, man, I'm feel called, man, to start this church. And he said, yes, we can't wait. We're excited because in his mind, I'm gonna do one
Yeah.
of their churches. Yeah, you're gonna do this church. Yeah, and I said, no, 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 I'm not doing another campus for us. I'm gonna do my own church. And he said, okay, where are you planning on doing this church? I said, here. What do you mean? Here. Well, I had no idea at the time that I was resigning. I didn't know that. I thought we were gonna have this beautiful conversation. He's gonna say,
Sister church relationship, we
yes,
together.
street. Yeah, that's perfect. You know what I mean? I was young, very immature. I had a dream in my heart, but I
Yeah.
didn't know how to. I didn't have enough wisdom or seasoning on how to have the conversation with my pastor about what I was feeling. And
Yeah.
so, while I was sharing a dream with my pastor, what he had in his heart for what he thought we were going to do was kind of being torn apart.
Yeah.
And so, we went through a season of, hey, what's next for you? And in the midst of that conversation of what's next, Denver came to be. And when I went to Denver, it was really me saying, all right, God, I know that you've given me a gift. I know that you've put a calling on my life. And I know that what I've done in Boston, I felt a cap. I knew that I had my grace for where I was had lifted. I
Mm.
knew that, I loved youth pastoring and I loved what I was doing, but I knew there was more. And I'm telling you, there's so many people that are listening to this that are feeling like there's more and they are wrestling with here's where the wrestle comes in. I know that there's more for me, but I'm afraid of disappointing the people that I love so much in my life.
Yeah.
And every pivot came with joy and disappointment.
Yeah.
Every pivot in my life, when I went from Boston to Denver, it was one of the hardest things because I saw the joy of my future, but I also saw the pain from disappointing people who had built their life around things I taught and
Yeah.
around our relationship. And so me going to Denver, I ended up going to the Potter's House of Denver. And I was so excited because I was going to go to another space that I wasn't familiar with. I was literally going to another city that I was going to be uncomfortable. And I felt like I was going to one of the largest ministries in the world. And let's just keep it real. I love God. I love God's people. And God knows that in my core, I do this for him and no one else.
Yeah.
It was something in me that's like, man, what would it be like to do ministry at that level? I come from a small Baptist church. Thinking about doing ministry at that level was like, whoa, this will blow my mind. And so through prayer and eventually my pastor said, let's do it. They blessed us. They prayed for us. And I took my wife and my two kids at the time, and we moved from Boston to Denver, Colorado to go to Potter's House. And it was an interesting journey.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm a pause that. I get it. I get it. It was a lot going there. But now I don't want those who are watching, those who are listening. I'm gonna throw show notes in. I'm gonna ask Pastor Brian some other quick questions that he'll kind of elaborate on. But I don't want us to miss for the young preacher, right? For the person who, we said off camera on camera that we're a little older now. But for the younger one who has that burn, right? Because it made logical sense for you to say, well, we just work together, right? Outside of knowing that sometimes churches aren't built to be ready to work together, which means that I have to divide what I have. Right. But we know math, right? Not like I did this thing about new math, right? Regular math, when you carry the one, if you carry the one, that means you had to cut something anyway. Right. But you cut it to make it more. You don't cut it to make it less. But
Mm.
for the young preacher, I think it's important to hear what you said, that you heard it one way, you shared it. The pastor wasn't really willing, but at the end, and I love that, Pastor Bryant, that he blessed it, right? And you wanted him to bless it. right? I think that so often is a thing that we don't talk about, that we don't share about, is you think when you disagree, then just forget it, I'll go my way. Right. But I think, and I'm outside looking in, that God literally blessed the space because you got the blessing. Right. And I don't know. I'm just going to pause. I want to put stuff in your mouth, but I'm thinking that that is also key.
It is critical. It's critical. I'm amazed at how many people in ministry are lone rangers,
Hmm.
people who have no covering, no connection, people who are just doing ministry without what I call any authority. I believe that you are one in authority because you are one under authority.
That's
And
good.
if you are not under anyone's authority, I don't believe that you're credible enough or mature enough to be in authority. Uh, Even, I mean, for me, I feel like me getting that blessing from my pastor was me saying, "Hey, I don't want to be in Denver not covered by anybody.
Yeah.
I don't want to move here not knowing that I have some type of roots." And for me, I feel like it makes you stronger. It makes people take you more seriously, and it gives you accountability. Because here's
Yeah.
the deal: all of us in ministry can be a little crazy. All of us in ministry can be a little off.
Yeah.
Reason why you being a lone ranger is so scary is because on your off day, if there's no one who can check you, no one
Bro.
can sit you down, no one who can stop you, that's dangerous. You have put way too much trust in yourself. No, I wanted the blessing of my church because I wanted the correction of my church. I wanted the accountability of my church. Can I keep it even more real?
Yeah.
I wanted the resources of my church. I didn't want to be a lone ranger just in case things in Denver didn't work out.
Yeah.
I needed to make a call and say, can I get some help? And there are people in ministry who would desperately need some help, but don't have nobody to call because they
Hmm.
have so many bridges that now they don't even have anyone that can give them some type of rope when they need it.
Yeah.
And so what I got was not just spiritual blessing,
Yeah.
but I got natural blessings.
That's good.
Things did get hard in Denver,
Yeah.
and I was able to make some calls, and my church in Boston had my back. And I think that's so important for young preachers today. And all the people who was in my ear chirping about, man, you should do your own thing, and you most dangerous people in the world.
Please.
I got so fooled by how many was buying my sermon CDs, and I got
Yeah.
so fooled, and I was going by the line of the sermon CDs instead of the lineage of the anointing of the ministry that I was in.
That's good.
And so, I learned never to be distracted by people, but to be connected to the covering that God has given you.
Yeah, yeah, I think that that is I'm gonna have to move us along a little bit because we could stay here forever, bro. So I got to figure. And I had you, you was on episode 5 of Ministry Pivot, so like early on because you my guy and I appreciate it, and we talked about self-care, but we got to figure out how to go into some of these places. But I wanna be good with time because there's an algorithm and the people not gonna watch all of this at one time, so I want them to watch everything. But I think it's important to just highlight the fact that you are aware that you are aware of God's calling on your life, right? But also aware of God's word on your life above the words of people in church, right? And the people who are saying all of these things because they not going to come the same way that they support the man of God or woman of God who was there because they were set there. And I think that it is so much in that. So okay, so Denver, you're leading worship. You're also youth pastoring. We know stuff, and you shifted out of Denver, and you came. You came back to Charlotte for a minute, right? Were you in Charlotte?
I went to Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina,
Durham. Okay.
to be a part of a ministry there. And I went to World Overcomers Christian Church,
Yeah.
amazing church,
Yeah.
and went to really be a teaching pastor. So when I was in Denver, I'm kind of worship pastoring, and I still feel this burden of like, I know that I'm called to pastor, to senior pastor.
Yeah.
And so my next step was, man, I was great at worship, but I felt like, man, I really needed to to learn how to preach pastorally.
That's
So
good.
I knew how to be an evangelist, but I didn't know how to speak to one audience and help grow this audience. And so I had an amazing opportunity to kind of be at a campus and to be a part of this church and to be able to speak and preach. And so joined the church, became young adult pastor there. So I lived in Raleigh, Durham, and absolutely amazing time. And it was in Raleigh, Durham that my ministry just took off like
Yeah.
wildfire.
Yeah, yeah. I remember, and that's the season. I remember us talking. There's a couple folk that God has allowed me to kind of check in with. You were one of them, and I remember asking. And during that season, as that season was pivoting, no pun intended, you were talking about, I'm a plant, and I'm like, yo, you're gonna kill it. Like, this is gonna be dope. And then you hit me and was like, yo, I'm coming to your area, bro. Actually, I'm gonna be a campus pastor out here at Union. I was like, really? I was like, that's not what we talked about, but that's still dope.
Yeah.
So how did that pivot happen? And then we'll be able to obviously get to now you're
Yeah.
back.
That pivot came from the pandemic. So I had a plan in my mind, and we were talking about planting. And then when the pandemic hit, everybody just paused. Everybody in ministry and in church, we wasn't sure what the future of the church was going to be like.
Yeah,
The church that I was at, we wasn't sure which campuses we were keeping open. We weren't sure who was there, who wasn't there. And so the pandemic gave me an opportunity to kind of say, all right, do I want to plant now
hmm,
during a time where schools are no longer opening the churches, where people haven't come back into buildings, where we don't know what everybody's online. And so it gave me an opportunity to say, hey, rather than jump and plant a church in this setting, I kind of heard from God that was like, hey, what if there was an opportunity to go to a space where you could get some hands on training on just how to plant a church and to be a part of a ministry that I had that was in the line of exactly the way I wanted to do ministry.
yeah.
And so that's kind of how I pivoted from North Carolina to where I'm at now, Union Church.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. Now that's where the home church is, but you are in North Carolina back again. And shout out to again to Union Pastor Stephen. You were right down the street. Shout out my pastor, Pastor Watley's Kingdom Fellowship. And it was a dope move. You know what I mean? It was a dope. I think they've always been doing good stuff. You know what I mean? I've texted you this term. I'm sure I text all my friends and say same team. Like I love to see y'all killing it. Like I don't feel the competition piece of it because I'm very clear. There's like a billion people that need Jesus, right? So however they get him, I'm with it. But there's some very unique things and different things that you all do. And this really, I mean, for those who are watching and listening, we're going to throw some notes inside the show notes. But this is like the crux of what I wanted Pastor Brian to be here for, because I wanted us to talk about what are some things, not being, now he texts me on this, not being the expert, even though I'm pretty confident he's close to it. What are some things that people need? I want you to talk a little bit about your time at Union before you're planting this campus. But the ultimate thought is, what are some things that we need to, or people need to think about and look for as they're praying to God for, one, where to go, right? And then praying to God on how to go. Because I think you all have done, and I said this to you, privately, and I'm saying it publicly, I think you all have done a phenomenal job the way you're setting up this Union Charlotte campus.
Yeah, I think the first thing that you have to do is number one, you got to be honest with yourself about who you really are.
Yeah.
Uh, I knew that I was a church planner. I knew that I was called to senior pastor. I knew my age in the timeline in which I had it. I wanted to do it. And so when you're honest with yourself,
Yeah.
then you could be honest with two other people that you have to be honest with. Number one is God. I'm amazed at how many people lie to God. You're,
Wow.
and part of the reason why we lie to God is because we don't want to talk to God by faith. We don't want to say, hey, God, this is what I'm feeling in my heart. This is really what I want to do. This
Yeah.
is what I sense that you're saying. This is, Lord, I'm asking you. And I'll man, God, I know that there's something in me. And then you have to be honest with your pastor. You have to
Mm,
you have to communicate with your pastor. So many people lie to their pastors about their true intentions
that's
because they
good.
believe if the pastor knows that I really want to start my own church, then he's going to throw me away. He's going to throw me out. No, the pastor just wants to know what's really in your heart, and
Yeah,
that pastor now can help you and guide you to how to make it happen. What has blessed me and my pastor is that from day one, we were both honest about what I really wanted, and he was honest about what he could do. And I don't know if I've always had that type of
that's good.
relationship with the senior pastor. It's always been, kind of like general conversations, and it's always been like this assumptions. There's always been unspoken expectations.
That's good.
Man, what me and Pastor Stephen had was clarity, straight up clarity.
That's what's up.
Hey, here is my timeline. Here is in a respectful way, not in a do what I'm asking you to do. Here's my timeline. Here's what I'm feeling. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's what I want. And he's like, okay, great. Here's what we can do for you. Here's how we can manage that. And that level of honesty allowed us both to be on the same page. And I find that it's the first step to why this doesn't necessarily go right all the time.
Yeah,
Because you didn't tell the pastor everything you really wanted. He didn't tell you everything he was really thinking. Y'all both thought God was just going to meld y'all together, and
yeah,
it doesn't necessarily work that way.
yeah,
Uh, there has to be agreement. The most important thing is that there's an agreement with you and yourself. There's an agreement with you and God, and that you have agreement, obviously, with your spouse. That you have agreement with your pastor. It starts there. Everything else that's coming from there, where, how much money, how we gonna do it, what we gonna call it, that stuff comes easy when the foundation is right.
yeah,
When the foundation ain't right, now I'm
yeah,
sneaking. You know how many guys will come and see me, and I have to ask them, "Do pastor know you're here? Can I'll put the phone and put on Instagram. They say, whoa, whoa, don't put me on. My church don't know that I'm here praying about me. You know what I'm saying? Man, I
yeah,
hate to sneak around like that. And I was there, and I
yeah,
hated.
yeah,
Man, I love the fact that I could go to a city, sit down in the city, pray if I want to be in this city. I could go on Instagram and say I'm in this city, and
yeah.
my pastor knows. I didn't have to hide it from him. And I think that that is something that's missing. It's a key beginning to how this can
Yeah.
be.
Yeah, I think that's, and you said again, we're gonna have to figure this out. It's gonna be like a long, drink champs, but not with the drinking. But the whole point, some people don't even know what I'm talking about. But the point is, right, that you all though were able to, and I'm gonna use this word here strategically. You all were able to negotiate what made sense, right? Because in negotiation, nobody, if it's good negotiation, both sides win and both sides quote unquote lose, right?
Yes.
And you were able to have enough just strengthen yourself, trust in yourself, and Pastor Stephen to say, look, this is because it's gonna look different, right? It's gonna look different. This is gonna, because of the person that you are, right? The gift that God has given you and the gift that Pastor Stephen is, it's gonna look different. But the end goal is that more people are going to see Jesus, right? And that this work is going to be able to get done. I think that is like just that's gold by itself. You know what I mean? And yeah, I'm gonna pause, let you reflect if you have something. If not, I'm gonna ask some specific questions.
No, you keep going. Let's go.
All right. So now we are when this gets released, we will be probably less than 30 days from the launch of Union Charlotte. And I've been watching, and you all have been putting a bunch of stuff in place. From the launch teams to the outreach socials already. Doing your growth tracks. Before you actually like started the first service, you got like members, like it's nuts. So like I want, for the person who's watching, who's listening, who's thinking about praying about, right, whether they start a standalone campus or whether they start a standalone ministry, whether God has called them to do, but can't just start, whether God has called them to do those things. What are some things that they need to be starting to put in place? We got that they need to be honest with themselves, honest with their pastors, but you all have done some practical things, right? You all have done some outreach things. You've done some mixer things. You've done some community things, and you haven't had your first service yet.
Yeah. Um, well, number one, I think everything starts with the love that you have for that city. Find a city that you love.
Dope.
And the quickest way to find a city that you love is, if I didn't have a church here, would I want to live here? If I didn't actually like, I know that everyone feels like they're supposed to be called to like some place that I hate this place, and the Lord just called me here. If you don't love the city, I just don't know why you're there. You don't love it. If you have to pray to be here, and don't put that on God. Don't put that on God. The fact that everyone's being, and
Yeah.
I say that because so many people are like, yeah, you went to a nice city that you like, but God gave me a city that I hate because you need to be here. No, the city that you hate, somebody loves.
Exactly.
Somebody loves the inner city. Somebody loves urban ministry. Somebody loves that suburb. Somebody love. Go where you love,
That's good.
because eventually ministry gets hard. And when ministry gets hard, one of the things that keeps you in it is that I have a love for this city. I love this place. I found a city that I love. I love Charlotte. Charlotte is a city that has 1 million people in it, 2.4 million in the metropolitan area, but it is a city of transplants. I rarely meet somebody in Charlotte who is from Charlotte.
Mm.
People move to Charlotte, 84, 86 people move to Charlotte every single day. They're
Wow.
moving from California. They're moving from Dallas. They're moving from New York. They're leaving some of the bigger cities. They're coming to Charlotte because they want a new place to start their life. Well, guess what? I'm a transplant. I moved 5 times in the last 5 years. So I know what transplants are going through. I know all the people who are here who don't have community, don't have family, looking for what to do next. I'm their guy. I speak their language because family. I left everything I knew to follow a dream and follow God. So fall in love with your city. I'm in love with Charlotte. I love
Good.
this place. I'm wearing this jacket because it's got Charlotte somewhere on the jacket. Fall, love,
That's what's up.
wake up in the morning. I love when my plane lands and I get off the plane and I'm here. I love it. Nobody's got to force me. These people, I love them. Secondly, you've got to have, you start with your team. I'm amazed at how many people who start with congregation. They start with a gathering. They don't start with a team. They
Mm.
they will start with a service, or they'll start with a Bible class.
Yeah.
I didn't start with a Bible class. I didn't start. My team is yet to hear me preach. They won't. My team won't hear me preach until we launch.
That's
Well,
awesome.
Pastor, how is that? I'll tell you how. Because when Jesus was establishing the church, he didn't start with a crowd. He started with his core. He started with the disciples. He started with finding the team he was going to build, and that's what we've done. And at this point of this recording, we have over 150 people on our launch team. And my goal is to have over 200 people on our launch team by the time we launch. And part of the reason why that is because Jesus said these words. He said, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Pray ye therefore that the Lord of the harvest sends you into that harvest. The crowd's gonna come. The crowd's gonna be there. Jesus said, I don't have a harvest problem. There are harvests everywhere. He said, we have a worker problem. There are not enough laborers for the people that need God. So I'm not worried about the harvest. I'm worried about the laborers. So I've spent all my time leading up to my launch on the laborers.
Good.
People who are going to work with kids, people who are going to set up and take down, people who are going to be in a parking lot, people who are going to be greeting, people who are going to be setting up food for our volunteers, people are going to be helping people to their seats. I mean, I'm thinking through leaders.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't like to start with leaders because starting with leaders takes longer. It takes longer to find quality and spend time and develop. No, I'd rather just preach, have 300 people show up, and I'm good.
And
Well,
be
here's
struggling on Saturday to get them.
exactly, exactly. You're doing everything. You're setting up the equipment. You're loading up the equipment. You're anytime, I hate to go here, but anytime I'll see church planners, I'll see pastors, and they kind of trying to impress you by saying, "Man, look, I set up everything by myself." And I'm saying, no. Why'd you set up everything by yourself? Oh,
Mm-mm.
look, I'm loading it all in. And they want us to say, "Man, that's amazing." And I'm saying, no, you
Mm-mm.
got to spend more time finding your team.
Yeah.
Find the people that you're called to do life with and do ministry with. There are people who are called to help you launch. The
Yeah.
Lord's been talking to them. He's been dealing with them. It's in their heart. Just like there are people who love to give, there are people who love to serve.
Yeah.
You go into a city, there are people right now in a city that are called to you. They
Yeah.
can't wait to
Yeah.
help you set up. They
Yeah.
can't wait to help you gather and do what you're calling them to do. They're just looking for an opportunity. They're just waiting for someone to sound the alarm that you are needed. And that's what I did when I came to Charlotte. I sounded the alarm to say, you are needed. And so we built a significant launch team. We do interest socials. Interest socials are just gatherings that we have where we we find a local vendor in a city, whether it be a coffee shop, a restaurant, ice cream place, whatever it can be, anything that kind of looks pretty nice. And most local shops, they don't have a problem with you saying, "Hey, we will pay to when you get, when you close up for us to open up just for us." Some of them love the business. Some of them are excited, especially if they feel like you might be an organization in the city that's going to make some noise. So we find local vendors in the city, and then we just send a call. Hey, if you want to just know more about our church, and you want to just meet some people in your city that are cool and great, and you want to be a part of a community, man, just come check us out. Hey, I tell people, hey, even if you're just coming for the coffee, even if you're just coming for the sandwich, that's fine. We want you to come on through. And so we've been averaging 120, 130 people at an interest social. And those people will walk through the door, and we'll have fun, and we'll have some games, and we'll talk, we'll play music. It costs us maybe $200 maybe to rent a little equipment so that we can, have some sound and have a microphone. We eat. And then once I give the vision of the church, I give an invitation and say, hey, no strings attached. But if you love the vision of what we're trying to do, we want you to fill out this card or send this text, and we'll have 30 people just say, hey, I'm down. Let's do it. I'm ready to go. And so we've done one of those a month, one of those every month. We've done what we call generosity serves. A generosity serve is where we do a form of outreach where we are just finding a way to touch people.
Okay.
One of the coolest generosity serves ever done. I think we did it. I'm sorry. But what we did was we went to a local ice cream shop. This was by far my favorite. We went to a local ice cream shop and we said, hey, when is your busiest day? And they told us their busiest day. I said, hey, can we pay for everyone's ice cream for the day? It cost us some money, but even if you took $1,000, man, find a way to get $1,000. If you really want to be flex, find a way to get 2,000. Just get $1,000. Even if you can only get $750, say, hey, we will pay for ice cream up to this amount.
Yeah.
Let us do it. And all we're asking is that everyone who purchases ice cream, that you give them this card. On the card, it says that this ice cream was paid for by Union Church. We just wanted you to know that we appreciate you. We're praying for you, and that there's a church in the city that cares for you.
Yeah.
And so we put that on a card. So I sat there. They didn't know. I was sitting there. They didn't know who I was. I watched families come up to get ice cream, order their ice cream, get to the cash register, go to pay, and the person at the register say, hey, your ice cream was paid for today by Union Church Charlotte.
Awesome.
Here's a card just letting you know, has our QR code on there. People were crying, people were teary-eyed, like, what is going on? Tears came down my eyes. My wife got emotional. Our kids were watching because I got to see family after family walk through the door, and I knew that we paid for it, and they had no idea that it was us. And so that was just a way for us to sow a seed into the people in that city.
Yeah.
We do outreaches, And our outreach was unique. We're starting portable, which means we're starting in a local high school.
Hmm.
We don't just go to this high school. We've adopted this high school. We partner with this high school. So our outreaches have been at the high school. We've been cleaning up the high school. We've been painting in the high school. We've been sanding stuff down. The high school had like a garden in the back that students weren't able to use because it had been destroyed. We rebuilt it. We get our teachers donuts. We go in there and say, when the teachers first week back, we got them breakfast. We set them up. Why? Because we're partnered with the school. School has a football game. We showing up. We ready. We screaming. We're loud because we're just making noise in their city. Again, notice everything I told you. I didn't mention Bible class.
Nope.
I didn't mention church service. That's coming. It's
Yeah.
coming. It's gonna be there. Believe me. I told my team, y'all gonna hear me preach so much, you're gonna be sick of hearing me preach.
Yeah.
We're gonna have so much church, you ain't gonna believe it. Right now, though, can we just build a foundation to get us ready for the harvest that God's getting ready to bring?
That is absolutely phenomenal, man. And I'm hoping I'm going to write these notes out. Y'all going to listen. Y'all going to share it with people. I'm that algorithm thing is about to hit us, so I know people are going to tap out. But and they probably can't tap out because it's so good. But it's human nature.
I'm getting some feedback. I just want to make sure you're good.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Okay.
You straight now? Is it better now or no?
No, but it's good. If you're good, I'm good.
Yeah, no, I'm good. So all right, family. So obviously I wasn't good. I thought I was good, but I wasn't. There was something wrong with my microphone. Wasn't anything wrong with Pastor Brian's microphone. So I actually asked him the question around what does success look like at the end of the day, and he gives a very clear, concise answer to what that is. So please continue to listen on for a couple more moments as we finish out this pivot, talking to Pastor Brian Bullock of Union Church and starting Union Charlotte. But it's only my mic that starts to mess up, but he's really clear in the next few moments. So let's go ahead back with my conversation with Pastor Brian. So the help me just what is obviously to do church, obviously to impact this world, but obviously Charlotte. But if you had, so right now you don't know because you haven't launched this yet, which is why I wanted to kind of catch you before you launched. I know it's gonna be crazy after. What would be the ultimate like day 30 after the first launch of Union Charlotte? Like, what would be the, okay, now we're, because you got all the pieces, man, and you've been moving. And I text you and I said, man, I'm confident that whatever y'all thought was going to happen, it's going to be more than that when you start.
So you're asking me what would be the big,
what would be, yeah, what would be, this is now 30 days after Union Charlotte is launched. What would be the, yeah, God, I knew this was right. What would be that moment? And obviously there's so many things that it can be. So I'm not holding you to one thing that has to be right. I just want, and my reasoning for this question is for those who are watching, those who are listening, I want them to understand that the vision doesn't stop once you start. Right, it continues. God evolves it, but I want to hear from you, even in this season. I'm not sure if you spend a whole lot of time thinking about it, but I would want to hear what would that look like in 30 days. God, if I see these things, these are the things that we pray about.
So the things that I would be looking for after 30 days that would make me feel like, God, we're really doing this thing well, will be the exact same things that I'll be looking at 30 years from now in this church to existence. It will not change. These will be the things that will be the markers for us that we are where we need to be.
Okay.
It's 4 things.
Okay.
Number 1, that we are having incredible weekend experiences where lost people are finding God.
Amen.
If lost people are not finding God for us on a Sunday morning, we have not done our job well. The goal for us is on a Sunday morning that by the time I'm done speaking and there's a call to salvation, that there are people every week who will say yes to God. And so for me, those who are saying, man, I walked in here for the first time, didn't know church, didn't know God, but because I came in here, that from the time I got to the parking lot to the time I left, I felt like you guys saw me, you valued me, you cared for my life, and introduced me to a God I did not know. That for us is going to be, we're doing it. For us, it's going to be our groups. We are a church with small groups and connect groups. For me, groups are where people grow. Groups are where discipleship happen.
Yeah.
Groups are where you're able to find that accountability and connection. Groups are where I can go to be vulnerable and transparent about what's really going on in my life.
Yeah.
I look up after 30 days and I see that there is a people in our church that are jumping into a group, that are wanting to host a group, that are saying, yes, I want relationship and connection. Man, we're winning.
That's good. That's good.
Third is what we call our growth track. Growth track for us is how you get from the seat into serving, right? It's how we get to a place of, man, I really want to lock in what's going on to this church.
Yeah.
It's what we call the way we get people to start the journey towards their purpose.
That's good.
Our growth track is a class that happens after every weekend experience. And honestly, I go in when I was a campus pastor at Union in Maryland, the most important room to me that day would be that growth track room, because it would be 25, 30, 40 people who are saying, man, I love our church and I want to know how to dig deeper. I want to know how to learn my gifts and what God has called me to do. When I look out on 30 days after our launch and I see that there are people who went through the 4 steps of our growth track, I will cry like a baby. You hear me?
Awesome.
I will be on my knees saying, God, this is incredible. And then lastly is what we call our dream team. Are people signing up to serve? Do people want to get involved? Are people saying, here is a place where I can actually make a difference?
Yeah.
Here's a place where I can use my gifts to serve God and be a part of the laborers that are few, that are going after the harvest that is plentiful. So we have weekend experiences that are introducing people to God, and we have groups that are thriving and meeting in homes and in Starbucks and Targets all around the world, all around the city. And we have people in growth track discovering their purpose. And we're watching people serve on a team. I'm telling you, 30 days, 30 months, 30 years from now, those will be the markers for our church that says we are making the impact that we've been called to make.
Pastor Brian Bullock, ladies and gentlemen. That's super dope. I think that is man. I'm excited for y'all, man. I've been excited for you just in your corner, period. But I'm excited for what you're going to do in Charlotte, man, and for the roadmap that it's going to be. And for the roadmap is going to be not just for churches, but just for community leadership, right? I think that's a lot of what I hear that God is kind of blessing and moving you all through. And final question, resources, man. What does a leader, what does a pastor, what does a future church planner need to be listening to, reading, thinking about, really listening to and reading, podcasts and books, just some resources so I can throw them in the show notes for folks, because it's always got to be that helps sharpen our soul.
Number one, if you are a church planner, I recommend that every church planner don't plant alone. There is an organization that I am a part of called ARC. It is the Association of Related Churches, and they are helping us launch. They have launched over 1,000 churches, and we will be part of the number of which they launch. Obviously, we're launching a Union church and have an incredible pastor, Pastor Stephen Chandler. And but even my pastor said, hey, let's go through ARC. They launched him 10 years ago. And now here we are 10 years later, and they're launching us in Charlotte. And so I would recommend everyone who wants to plant a church to find a way to be connected to that organization. Obviously, I listen to Craig Rochelle's podcast. I just think that when it talks about leadership, because there is a difference between preaching and pastoring. There's a difference between pastoring and leadership. These are all different phrases, and just because you can preach don't mean you can pastor. Just because you can pastor don't mean you can lead. You got to learn the difference between all of them. Obviously, you need to read A Blessed Church by oh my Lord, his name's skipping my mind.
Yeah,
I
but
can't.
generosity. Yeah, I'm gonna throw it in the show notes. It's
Yeah,
blinking on me too. I see his face.
a blessed church. There's a book called Sticky Church that you want to read as well. But I would say one of the best books that I've read is by John Maxwell on the 5 levels of leadership. And if you can get and understand the 5 levels of leadership and understand what each level requires, you will be the leader that can build a phenomenal church.
Awesome. The author is Gateway Church. I'm still
Yes,
blanking on the name.
I
But it's
believe it.
Gateway Church. Yeah, we know him, bro. We just not right now. Well,
Yeah,
man, I appreciate you spending the time, man. I appreciate you jumping with me pivot again. For those who are watching, listening, we'll have show notes. You can click on the bottom, find out more about Pastor Brian in Charlotte. If you're in Charlotte or near it, you need to go check them out. And then again, I appreciate you, man, praying for you, brother. And looking forward to hearing great news as the church launches and even checking in towards the middle and end of 2023, man, to see how it's going on here. I'm gonna text you beyond that, but on here. Bless you, man. Thanks again.
thank you, man.
Wasn't that a great conversation between Pastor Brian and myself? I told you all it was going to be good. I told you Pastor Brian is a awesome leader. We're so excited about what God is doing in Union, Charlotte, and what God is going to do through that ministry. Don't forget to like, to comment, to share, to subscribe. Don't forget to check out our articles. Shout out my ministry partner, Givelify. Of course, shout out my pastor, Pastor Matthew Watley at Kingdom Fellowship, AME Church. Super excited about all that God is doing there. But this podcast is one that I'm sure you have to go listen to again. I'm sure you'll download these show notes. Don't forget to share it. Don't forget to like it. Don't forget to subscribe so that you're engaged in what God is going to do. Praying that you end this year strong. Praying that you remember that this is your season of opportunity. All you have to do is pivot forward. Have a great one. God bless.